How to grow Astilbe. The Astilbe plant is a perennial with fern-like foliage and colorful, feathery blossoms. Astilbe vary in height, ranging anywhere from 6 inches to 5 feet, 15 centimeters to 1.5 m, so it is important that you select a variety that suits the needs of your garden. New plants are almost always grown from root divisions, rather than from seed, and both new and established plants thrive in thoroughly moist conditions. Part 1. Preparing to plant. 1. Determine if you're in the right growing environment. Astilbe are indigenous to North America and Europe, in the northern areas where weather is cool and wet. They grow best in these areas, although they can grow a bit nearer to the equator as long as they're given plenty of shade and water. If you live in an area that has high temperatures year-round or lacks frequent rain, you likely won't be able to grow Astilbe. Speak to a worker at a local nursery to get detailed information on your specific area's growing conditions. 2. Decide how to plant. Astilbe comes in 3 forms for planting: from seed, from bulbs, and from divisions, like cuttings. Although all 3 are viable options, gardeners tend to prefer using divisions for planting than the other 2 options. Astilbe seeds are difficult to grow and likely to rot before sprouting, and bulbs take much longer and don't provide as much color as divisions. Astilbe grow in clumps that have separate root systems, called divisions. These can, and should, be pulled apart and replanted to form new large plants. You can purchase divisions or full plants from a local gardening center, or you can divide a pre-existing Astilbe plant. 3. Know when to plant. Plant the Astilbe in spring or fall. Most Astilbe plants are planted directly in the garden during the mid-spring, after the threat of severe frost has passed. The flower usually blooms in June to early July. Astilbe can also be planted in the early to mid-fall, after the intense summer heat, and will usually bloom the following year. 4. Choose a location. Astilbe plants thrive in partial to full shade. Dry, hot soil in full sun is the worst possible condition for an Astilbe plant. Therefore, look for a spot in your garden that gets shade for at least part of the day, but don't be afraid of an area that is in deep shade, such as under a tree canopy. Make sure the location has good drainage, for although Astilbe like plenty of water, they don't like soaking in puddles. 5. Amend the soil. These flowering plants prefer loamy, earthy soil that is loose but has the ability to retain moisture. Mix humus or peat moss into the plant bed by digging in several generous handfuls using a garden fork or trowel. If your selected plot has poor drainage, mix in sand and perlite to help encourage the drain off of excess water. Part 2. Dividing an Astilbe plant. 1. Select a plant. Select an Astilbe that is several years old, since Astilbe plants develop large, clumpy roots after a few years. Astilbe come in multiple attractive colors including white, red, pink, peach, and purple. Extract the plant from the ground or container it sits in. 2. Divide the Astilbe. Cut a large section of roots from the plant using clean gardening shears. Select a section with a crown or heart. The crown should appear somewhat dried out, but even a crown that is slightly immature should still survive. 3. Soak the roots. Sit them in a bucket of lukewarm water for several hours or overnight. Soaking the roots encourages them to thrive on their own. Part 3. Planting your Astilbe. 1. Dig a hole twice as wide as the clump of roots. The hole should be wide enough to prevent accidental damage to the roots as you plant them. By having a wide hole, you also ensure that the soil directly surrounding the roots is not as compact, making it easier for the roots to spread. In addition to being twice as wide as the clump of roots, the hole should also be about 4 to 6 inches, 10 to 15 centimeters, deep. 2. Place a division into the hole. The roots should be below ground level, and the crown should be around 1 to 2 inches, 2.5 to 5 centimeters, below ground level, as well. 3. Backfill the hole with soil. Refill the hole with the soil you initially removed from the plot. The soil should be of the same loamy consistency as the surrounding soil. Make sure that the roots are completely covered and firmly pack the soil down in place to remove any gaps of air. 4. Space the divisions 1 to 3 feet, 30 centimeters to 1 m apart from one another. If planting multiple Astilbe divisions at once, the holes should be spaced far enough apart to allow the roots room to spread. 5. Water the divisions thoroughly. Immediately after planting the root clumps in the ground, you should thoroughly drench the soil with a garden hose or watering can. New plants absorb a great deal of water before they sprout and produce flowers, and if the roots are allowed to dry out during this time, the growing process may be disrupted. Part 4. Caring for your Astilbe. 1. Keep the Astilbe regularly watered. In rainy climates, additional watering may not be required. For climates that occasionally go without rain for several days to several weeks, additional watering is almost certainly needed. Check the condition of the soil on a regular basis. Once the surface feels dry, you should give the soil a thorough drenching. Never let the roots stay too dry for too long, even after the plant is established. Rather than giving small watering every day, give a heavy watering every few days. 2. Apply fertilizer at least twice per season. Feed the plant with a slow, release fertilizer at the start of spring, and give them an additional dose 6 to 8 weeks later. You can either use an all-purpose fertilizer that contains equal parts nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, or you can opt for a fertilizer that contains higher levels of nitrogen and phosphorus. Phosphorus helps with root and flower development, while nitrogen aids in the establishment of full, vibrant foliage. Note that you should only apply fertilizer when the soil is wet. Fertilizer should also be applied during the early morning or evening, when the temperatures have cooled. Following both of these measures will prevent the fertilizer from burning your plant. 3. Keep a layer of mulch around the plants. Use bark chips or any other type of mulch that retains moisture well. Scattering a solid layer of mulch around the plant base helps the soil stay moist and also acts as a type of weed control. Additionally, decomposing mulch can add more nutrients to the surrounding soil. 4. Bury the crowns as they rise above the soil. The plants spread quickly, and as they spread, large clumps of root form. The crowns of these clumps tend to rise above the soil. You should cover the crowns with loamy soil to keep the roots from drying out. 5. Apply pesticide only as needed. The most common insects and diseases to attack the Astilbe plant include the tarnished plant bug, powdery mildew, and bacterial leaf spots. Even so, the plant is not especially prone to pests. If any of these problems do emerge, you can apply an appropriate insecticide or fungicide then. Preventative pesticides are not recommended, however. 6. Divide clumps every few years. Every spring, you should take divisions of the Astilbe plant's roots to prevent the roots from choking each other out. You can replant these divisions to create new plants, give them to gardening friends, or discard them. Tips. Among Astilbe varieties, the fennel, erlicht, and Venus are notably lovely. Fennel Astilbe have dark green leaves and dark crimson flowers. Ehrlicht varieties have dark green foliage and white flowers. The Venus variety has bright green foliage and bright pink blossoms. Things. Mature Astilbe plant. Garden shears. Bucket of water. Humus or peat moss. Garden trowel. Garden hose or watering can. Fertilizer. Pesticides, as needed,